Welcome to Soni Irabor Live. Well, tonight we have somebody that will journey us. When I say journey us, he will take us through the process of enjoying what we Nigerians believe should be our natural, mandate, if you like, or some of the things that we believe we possess but we do not use. We don't take advantage of the things we know we have. For example, policy making. Okay, fine. What about the business of Nigeria? How does Nigeria begin to excel in such a way that when they look at the rest of the world looks at us, they see, some powerful, very creative energy. But when we look at one another, when we look at ourselves, we see the opposite. We do not believe we can do certain things. I've just been looking at the country and the laws that have set the country, the constitution, and some of the policy makers and the things they pronounce sometimes, and I'm asking myself, is Nigeria the real giant of Africa? Well, I have a man, he's a columnist, he's an author. He's also, he's a lawyer, but he's not yet started practicing law, But one thing I like about him is that he's been a commissioner in a state government before, and he actually studies the environment and he sees a lot of things, then he pours them out in his columns. I love that about him. Mr. Magnus Onyibe, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Well, I had to go round and round before I could ping on you because yes. You're wild too much. Yes, Nigeria has everything and yet we don't have anything. Mm-hmm. How would you put that in context?
It's really terrible that we've remained a country that has great potentials. And we've been saying this for the past, forever, that Nigeria has great potentials. But they are yet to be harnessed. It's a pity that we're 65 years old and we're still in this situation. We had very intelligent people in the seat of power, but unfortunately, some of the things that would have pulled us out of the doldrums, they started, but they couldn't bring to fruition. So,
is it because they don't trust themselves or they are afraid to utter sound? What is it that is making us not speak when we should?
Yes, some of us, some of the great things that were started got stranded. Let's take the very current one for instance. Some of the things that the current leadership, President Bola Tinubu, is doing right now, were actually started by military president Ibrahim Babangida in 1984. These reforms that President Tinubu
came in 85.
just saw through in 18 months, were actually started by General
Badamasi Babangida.
By IBB, but unfortunately he couldn't see through. He demurred, or he caved in under pressure, and so we went back to square one, but fortunately we have a Bola Tinubu that decided to stand his ground, and we're where we are right now. And the reason I'm saying this is that, the ice is thawing. I wrote about 3 months ago that the ice was about to start thawing, and a lot of people, didn't agree with me, and they were
up and down everywhere. Sense.
But this ice is thawing. Today, This Day newspaper did a survey, and they came up with the price of fence in the market. 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, about a month ago, I wrote about it again, that the ice was thawing. And in the social media, especially LinkedIn and co and whatever, people came after me and said, oh, people are still suffering. And I'm trying to tell them the difference.
It doesn't change overnight.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That it goes up faster than it comes down.
Yeah.
So people, so that it's a difficulty in economics.
The picturesque value of what you just said, it goes up faster than it comes down.
Yes, that's the real.
But the force of gravity should have forced things down faster.
In fact, Nigerians believe that what goes up doesn't come down. But for the first time, for the first time, this genie is coming out of the box. What went up is coming down. As you can see, when petrol subsidy was withdrawn, the price of petrol went up to 1,300.
Heavy.
Right now it's about 800 and something naira. So it's coming down. And all other things will come down.
There was something I also I saw in the social media. We always have to credit them when they said the USAID that Trump, decided to this DOGE, the Department of Government, whatever.
Yes.
And they had to make sure that whatever money was spent illegitimately must now begin to be recouped so that things begin to happen. And then the social media said that the price of beans in the north had gone double digits down.
Yeah.
So which means then what must have been the case was that there was an illegitimate effort to make it stay up.
Yes, so which is the case I made on LinkedIn as well, with people defending the existence of USAID. And I said, listen, the reason they are doing so is because they are beneficiaries more than Africans that those aids were meant to go to. Because they were contractors. Americans that are contractors to USAID, they were making a lot of money from these things. The products were coming from America, not from Africa, and stuff like that. So if you look at the total quantum of what comes to Africa out of the, let's say, $10 million, it's probably about 30 million that's coming, about 3 million. About 30% of it, 70% is going to them. So that's the justification for it. You just mentioned beans. There's a market in Maiduguri called Beans Market. There's no bank that doesn't have a branch there because it's a lot of money. There's a lot of money. Beans Market is a very major market. Bankers listening to me now will confirm that, right? So there were a lot of false pricing going on because of AIDS, and stuff like that and whatever. So with AIDS gone now, reality is coming in, whatever, So those are the kind of things that were artificial, that a lot of people didn't see, but they were just getting carried away by whatever. And by the way, I commend the Minister of Ali Party, along with the President himself, who approved it, because he envisaged that the USAID, that USAID was going, and they made provision. So there's not much gap in Nigeria with respect to that, so we're not suffering.
So the idea of subsidy, therefore, is actually a misnomer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As I said, it was subsidy that General Babangida was supposed to remove 1984, 1985, that he started, but he couldn't complete it because there was a blowback, there was a pushback, and he succumbed, he caved in. The same type of blowback and pushback that President Tinubu received, but he stayed the course. And Nigerians are now excelling, as you said, because they are saying, I'm not saying that the price of things have come down to where it was, where it should be, but it's coming down gradually. And
we are feeling it.
You are feeling it. Yes. It's there. When I wrote 3 months ago, I said there's no more space for it to go up. So it must come down.
Thank God for that.
Yes. It must come down. And I'm so happy, that
But I want to bring you back to public service or public office holders. We have the tripod of lawmakers, executive, and the judiciary. But the real action is within the judiciary on the one hand and the lawmaking on the other. But what we are seeing is that they don't even trust themselves to the extent that they have to allow the average Nigerian to feel the power of knowing I'm talented, I have the wherewithal to make things work. We are waiting for others from the globe to come and take us. Why are we not recognizing all these things here? The Igbo business model is what strikes me.
Absolutely. There's, okay, let's leave that reference. We have a lot of potentials in this country that we're not harnessing because we have not been really challenged. We're so buffeted, especially with subsidy. As bad as people are thinking that removal of subsidy made people feel the hardships that were ignited and triggered by it. It has been a teaching moment for us. A lot of people have found alternatives to the ways they were doing things in the past. A lot of people are they're looking for directions in other ways, and they're finding that they could have done things in so many other ways, and life could have been better. So it's a good thing that it has happened now. It could have happened in 84, 85, as I said, but right now we're all feeling it and realizing that we are not really stretching ourselves. We're not really, harnessing all the potentials that we have. And we, hope that what Dangote just did for the petroleum sector to turn it around, that it will happen in other areas. I was saying, for instance, why can't it happen in the cocoa industry, for instance? As you may be aware, Nigeria is the fourth largest cocoa producer in the world.
Fourth?
Yes, after Cote d'Ivoire, after Ghana, and after another country, and Nigeria is the fourth. Do you know how much Nigeria realized from export of cocoa in 2022? Maybe, 400 and something, or about $400 million, right? Now,
goodness.
Let me shock you. Germany doesn't grow cocoa.
And they make so
Germany
much.
Produces chocolates. It's the largest producer of chocolates in the world. It generated about $6.3 billion. Billion, not billion, dollars. From cocoa that it doesn't produce. Nigeria is the fourth largest producer. It generated only about $400 million in 2022. So you see, so how about if somebody is, helped, another Dangote is created in the cocoa industry to begin to process our cocoa? Because we're still exporting raw cocoa or just the, raw cocoa beans or whatever,
Yes.
So somebody should begin to process it so that we can make more money. Because if it's not processed, we cannot generate more money. You can see, like I just said, chocolate is being produced by Germany, and they're making all the money, Switzerland and everything else and whatever. So we should have another Dangote in the cocoa industry to begin to harness our cocoa, process our cocoa, and earn more money than $400 million from producing, cocoa beverages and chocolates. So those are the kind of things that the government of Nigeria should do. And I'm happy that, President Tinubu is working along those lines.
Yes. Then we also look at energy, electricity. 220 million people, give or take.
Yeah.
And we're still generating 5,000 watts or distributing.
We're generating more than 4,000, 5,000. They were celebrating that we have moved up to 5,800 megawatts. And that's the reason the grid has been collapsing regularly. It has collapsed 3 times this year, which is an average of once a month, right? And because it's antiquated.
But we can afford to change it, can't we?
Yeah, but the problem is that the transmission system is still in the hands of government, unlike the generation and the distribution. That's the weak point. TCN is still under the control of government. When they privatized or they sold or they unbundled in 2013, they did not unbundle TCN. And you see, when they unbundled the GENCOs, if you go to Ughelli, for instance, Ughelli has become a super performer. Yes. The one AFAM in Port Harcourt, the Ughelli one is in Warri. AFAM in Port Harcourt has also gone up in generation. Geregu in Kogi State, right? And all the other GENCOs.
There's one that is
invested money.
Edo State, because I was involved in Azuri.
Yes, Azuri. Azuri is a complete private investment.
Okay.
These ones, I'm telling you, the AFAM, the Geregu, the Ughelli are originally NEPA owned, and they sold to the private sector. So between these companies, and I'm telling you, Geometric, that I've heard you discuss with in Aba, whatever, is actually generating as well. So we have a total of between 12 to 15,000 megawatts available, but it cannot be disbursed, it cannot be, transmitted, it cannot be spread.
Is it because
the system
TCN
is weak.
doesn't have enough capacity?
TCN is a government-owned organization, so there's bureaucracy.
The fact that it's
so they're unable to invest.
No.
They need to invest in new equipment, new facilities.
They should tell the truth to the government. The president should be told the truth about what is happening there.
Yes, but that's how government institutions work. It's public service. That is the difference between public service.
No, you're sounding give-up-ish.
No.
Because I'm afraid I refuse to accept that.
No.
Because I don't see why I should be TCN. So I should be able to distribute, and the transmission should be such that everybody should be able to have access to power.
Government agencies are not dynamic, they are not proactive. Unlike, they are not profit driven, right? Same old. They just wake up and it just happens. Nobody gets rewarded extraordinarily or punished because it's public sector, it's public service. The managing director is probably not able to sack the executive director or even the technician.
So there's no commitment.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But for the private sector, they put in something so that they can get something. That's why the people in Afam, the people in Ugeli power plant, the people in Geregu will invest money so that they will boost generation and they can get their income from it. But
because if I know I'm getting power, I should be able to pay for it.
Exactly. So TCN is just there, just coasting, no new infrastructure. So, look, some of the infrastructure in TCN right now are probably 100 years old.
Wow.
Not changed.
Wow.
So unless it goes into the ownership of private sector people, then they can begin to boost the infrastructure to be able to carry.
May I know why? As a columnist, you must be doing a lot of research, and I'm happy with the information you are giving us. But may I know why 3CN is still in the hands of government? Is it that they have no answer to their questions, or what?
The people who privatized the electricity sector made that mistake to split it into three. It shouldn't be. They divided into generation, into transmission, and into distribution. And government kept transmission. Maybe at that time they would have said for security reasons, but nothing like that. So that has created a problem. Now, because there's a handshake between these three different entities, Genco has to sell to there's like a company that federal government created that buys from them.
Okay.
That are bulk electricity bulk purchase or whatever.
So
they give So each time there's supposed to be a handshake between these three, there are weak points, and that is contrary to how it operates elsewhere in the world. Elsewhere in the world, they give them zones. A company should be generating, transmitting, and distributing in a particular zone. Maybe if you want to say southwest.
Right. So that way, you know who to hold for whatever the problem might be.
They have capital, they have expertise, everything seamless, whatever, But they split it into three, and it's creating a problem. And government, worst of all, government held them to one. Right? So, okay, Discos are the only successful enterprise amongst these three groups is the generation, because they are generating enough. But unfortunately, they are unable to transmit, because the transmission companies are, and because they are unable to transmit, not enough is coming to the Discos. Discos are not able to distribute enough, so they are not generating enough income. So that's why they are barely surviving. Out of the 11 companies in the Disco part of the business, only about 3 are surviving. Only Ikeja Disco is viable. Eko Disco is just coasting.
On this
Abuja
note,
Disco is just managing.
I'll just take a short break. When we get back, we'll go into the whole essence of the rule of law, because what you're saying now is a major business. Is it hindsight or oversight? Or no sight at all? We'll be right back. Welcome back to Soni Irabor Live. And I have with me a man of multiple parts. Well, I don't mean spare parts of the human, but you please forgive me. Well, sometimes they say I don't sound serious. I am serious. I'm talking of Magnus Onyibe. He's an author. He's a lawyer. He was a commissioner in Delta State. That was the time when you went after me.
Yeah.
Because I was in Edo State. Mm. So, and then besides, he loves doing research, and I love that a lot. So we're now going into the rule of law and certain things that happened recently when we're talking about electricity, power generation, distribution, and so on. When it comes to owing, it's a major problem. Mm-hmm. Because the money is really not there for everybody to say, okay, I can do this or that. However, is it proper for a military organization to take laws into its own hand when there are laws setting it up to go and, picket another organization like Ikeja Disco? Air Force did that a few days ago, or a few weeks now. And honestly, it created a big problem because now we need to know how to solve this problem. It seems like a violation of human rights to me. I don't want to go into details of what happened.
I totally agree with you. That was actually, very wrong. We're no more in the military era.
No.
If you recall,
apart from that,
something like this had happened during the military era.
In Abiola's time?
Yes.
And Babangida's time?
Exactly.
Okay.
When, a certain Air Vice Marshal, who later became, I think he's late now, he became the governor of Adamawa State during whatever, actually got the Air Force people to go and raid the offices of NCC and whatever. In fact, at the end of the day, I think it was Babangida that said they should cool everything down and referred to the guy as a mad dog. It was a mad dog sin, as it was referred to. But this is a democratic era. And I think, that there has to be reorientation. The public servants generally, because what happened in Ikeja here is actually happening in other areas. Not just by the military. The people in the public service don't believe that they have to prioritize payment of electricity bill. That's because the control of these public utilities were under government in the past. Water, electricity, and all whatnot were under government. So they could work it out themselves. They could be owing NEPA forever. They could be owing, people that supply water forever, telecoms, and all those kinds of things. But there's been change of the way things, go on, since these public utilities were privatized. People staked their investment, their funds that they borrowed from banks to be able to set up.
That's another big problem.
And boost these things. And
you borrow money from banks, you have to pay back.
Of power, Adeboya Adelabu, mentioned that, the Gencos were being owned 350 billion naira.
Wow.
350 billion naira is enough to collapse the sector. It's enough to collapse the banking system. So it can become systemic. If they are not paid, that's a lot of money. Because if they are not paid, if they don't collect, recoup the money that they invested, they will not be able to service the loans to the banks. And if they are unable to service the loans to the banks will be under distress. And when they are stressed, they could collapse. So it's a systemic thing. So it's something that government has to really address. That's why in my article I said, it should go to the National Executive Council. So the ministers and the president and everybody will discuss it so that they can come up with a creative way to solve the problem. Let it become a first-line payment system. Because
maybe dialogue would have even helped. They may not be able to pay everything at once, but dialogue would have helped.
Exactly, to be able to, yes. It has to be, the system has to be funded. When they, how are they going to invest money to get more equipment that will boost their supply, their generation, if they are not being paid what they are already investing? How are they going to get more money from the banks? How are they going to get more money from investors? You know, the reason we have challenges right now is because TCN is still owned by government and no new investments are coming into the place. That's why the very brittle, very weak, very antiquated system that they have is collapsing. The minister, based on his mandate, is pushing them. Put more, put more, put more. And the people who are very dexterous and they are managing.
But the minister should at least find out what are their challenges, what needs to be changed to make things better for TCN.
I believe he knows, you know, but unfortunately, these investments are not going to be made overnight, and these investments are actually also heavy, and government does not have the resources to pump into it. That's why private sector is supposed to play the role, because you can see it's private sector that's driving the Gencos and driving the Discos. So it's only private sector money that can make these changes, but unfortunately, it's still in the hands of government. Do you know that each time there's a grid collapse, the federal government of Nigeria spends $25 million to get the system back working? It's not, I'm not the author. Enaya Abaribe, the senator who's chairman of the committee, said it in their report that they presented at plenary, that about 3 systems collapsed and it cost about $7.5 million to be able to get each of the systems working. So combine that for whatever, their total estimate of what it costs government to put the system back working is $25 million, not 25 million naira. I'm talking about $25 million, whatever. You know, so there will be incentive for people to be causing grid collapse if $25 million is going to go to some contractors. So this has to be looked at very critically.
The government institutions and agencies do not understand the implication of this.
They are not probably looking at it holistically. You know, that's why I said it should go to the National Executive Committee, you know, Council, and they can look at it, because some of these people are private sector driven and they can be innovative and they can think out of the box. To say, listen, if we don't give these people the oxygen, which is payment, they cannot exist. And if they don't exist, we're handicapped. Industrialization will not happen in this country. So we need to create a line to make payment of electricity bill priority. We need to create a line to make payment of electricity priority.
You will agree with me that when it comes to business, manufacturing, you need energy.
Of course.
You need, and in fact, when it comes to security, safety on the highway, you need electricity.
Of course.
You need to light up all the highways.
Of course.
So with all of these in mind, and why are other countries succeeding in those areas and we're not?
Okay, I'll give you an example. 2 countries that are cited as an example, China and India. China right now is the manufacturing hub for the whole world. Everybody is buying things in China. They are making things in China. Apple is producing in China. Anything you think of is being produced in China. The second country is India. If you watch CNN, if you watch CNN these days or whatever, or global network stations, TV, the advert is make in India, not made in India, make in India.
I like that.
Yes, make in India. You know, China was occupying that space. You know, everybody was going to China. What happened? China was suffering, was in this kind of situation that we're in a long time ago. But they had to do something drastic. They had to create the 3 Gorges Dam in the Yangtze River. It was going to cause a lot of environmental issues. About like maybe 300 million people were going to be displaced, you know, and all that and whatever. The Greenpeace people, the environment people went against them. They protested, they said they shouldn't do it and whatever. And India and China, you know, was persistent and whatever. And they did it. The 3 Gorges Dam, and they ramped up electricity. They have so much electricity now, you know, that nothing is hindering them. That's how they leapt forward. That's how they became industrialized. That's how they came out from the closet, so to speak, about 40 years ago, and they took over the world, and now they're the second largest economy in the world. China was particularly, India was particularly in the kind of condition that we're in. The World Bank was pumping in a lot of money, you know, and stuff like that. And they did some of the things that we have done right now, but we have not really mastered. And they just moved forward. And now everybody is making things in India. So we need to take that giant step to be able to correct all the, you know, things that we did wrong. Like, for instance, you know, in 2013, selling the assets to these three different companies. We need to consolidate. The government needs to collapse. I don't know if they have any clause in the agreement that they had in selling some of these discos and genscos that they can withdraw.
I'm not sure they did.
But fortunately, out of the 11, only 3 are fairly viable. So 8 have been withdrawn already. So these 3, they're going to work out how they can get them to merge with gencos, because gencos have really succeeded. We have like 40 gencos. They're doing very well. Both fresh greenfield, newly built ones like Azuri, Geometrics, and government ones like Geregu, like they're all over Papalante, all over the place and stuff like that. And what so, so those ones are there. So, and we have to identify like 2 or 3 people or organizations that are strong, like Dangote did in the petrol refining sector, and government should give them leg up, give them a boost, so that they can consolidate, these 3 different sectors: generation, transmission, and distribution, into one company and allocate it the regions, either the 3 regions, northern region, eastern region, and western region, or however they want to do it. But let these things be seamlessly run by one organization. How they're going to do mergers and acquisitions that they did in the banking industry, I don't know, but they had to create that kind of synergy. So that
what you're saying now, we learned a lot from the electronics and the telecoms industry.
Yeah.
So they succeeded. Prices went up. You're going back to your...
Yes.
And then it started going down slowly.
Yes, so...
How can we apply that?
So they made the same mistake. They made wrong assumptions. In the telecoms industry, they were able to operate in the same space. They gave license to MTN, to Econet, that became V-Mobile, and eventually gave to, MTN. They eventually gave to Glo, the local indigenous one by the Indefatigable Chief Mike Adenuga, right? So all of them can operate in the same space. That's how telecoms works. So they didn't zone them.
So they can interconnect.
Exactly. So they had that same mindset when they decided to privatize the electricity sector. So they didn't pay attention to the fact that elsewhere, the best practice all over the world, that is zoned. You cannot split into 3. They came with the mindset of civil servants, or of security infrastructure architecture, of saying police will arrest in the society, will take it to the courts will try and sentence, then the custodial institutions, the prisons, will get the people to serve the sentence. So they interface with each other. That's the kind of
they now call them correctional centers.
Exactly, yes.
But the military was always protect the territorial integrity of a nation.
Exactly,
So they don't have direct link with the ordinary man on the street.
Exactly. So, so they had the wrong mindset, so they decided to split these things. It shouldn't have been split. It should have been. I'll give you an example. There's an estate in Lekki Axis where a private company is generating, transmitting, and distributing. And they're doing very well. And they had excess energy, electricity that they were going to. They couldn't sell it to a co-disco because they didn't agree to buy at the price that they wanted. I think it was Lagos State government that stepped in eventually, that took that extra energy from them. And I think that's what they were using to light up the Lekki Axis. So the best thing is for these 3 aspects of the operation of the electricity system to be in the hands or under the control of one entity.
How can government succeed in achieving these things you're saying?
Government has to wake up. That's why I said, first of all, it has to go to ESCO, National Executive Council, where all manners of people with different ideas and they think out of the box and come up with a solution. Maybe the president will have to set up a task force to be able to deal with that. Don't leave it to the Minister of Energy alone, Minister of Power, Adelabu alone, and they will come up with a system.
Task force.
And I don't know what they did with, like I said, I don't know, BPE, is in charge. So I don't know the kind of arrangement that they have. Bureau of Public Enterprise. Yeah, so I don't know whether there's a clause where government can, withdraw this, the sale of these assets to these entities, so that they can now rejig everything and create a situation where there will be mergers and acquisitions. Like I said, there are strategic players in the sector right now. The Ikeja Disco people who own Sahara Energy, they have a lot of resources. They have a lot, so maybe they'll be able to be major players. In the Genco area, you have the likes of Hess Holdings, or the group led by Lumelu that owns Ughelli Power Plant, AFAM. They have resources. They are into banking, hospitality, and all that. So they have a lot of resources. You also have the Geregu, for instance. You have a Femi Otedola that has interest in that one. He also has other assets and whatever. These people can be encouraged. Yes, these people can be encouraged to come together, do mergers and acquisition where, like I said, they can start with north, south, and east. Each of these people can be whatever, and government can give them leg up, can support them in the way the CBN supported Dangote to do what it did with the refinery. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have sufficient electricity generation, transmission, and distribution, we cannot experience industrialization. And without industrialization, we are not going anywhere.
No.
And these people can also invest in other aspects of it, the alternative energy, the wind energy, the solar energy, and all the energy mix, so that we can be able to, without energy, there's no industrial takeoff. That is a given, and I'm sure President Tinubu knows it.
Yeah, with the kind of country we are, and the kind of things we possess, and the knowledge we seem to have, there's no reason why we should not go the way you're saying.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's just the necessity. We want this country to take off industrially. Without electricity, we can't take off industrially. We can't build anything. We can't manufacture anything. We can't. Listen, I'm sure you have been in a situation where you have to carry 3 telephones around because some of them
now
don't
they have multiple
networks.
lines in one phone.
Yes, some of them don't have networks. Why? Electricity.
And that's what's happening right now.
And the reason electricity is expensive is because the operators are using generators, running diesel to power their power stations, their power bases, and networks and stuff like that. That shouldn't be the case. So that's what is
that has gone on for decades.
Exactly. So that shouldn't be the case. And if we are saying, okay, fine, banking as well, we're saying, okay, cashless. You go to a lot of
energy.
ATMs, you're unable to transfer money or receive money because of lack of energy. So energy is fundamental to everything. It's the ground norm, it's the base. So
there's a problem here. The people that were mentioned earlier, the lawmakers, the executive, and the judiciary, are supposed to be people who should know something about some of these things. Do they read the things that are said about?
It's only people in the private sector that respond to what they read or what they hear. The people in government don't have that.
They're indifferent.
Don't respond to that stimuli because it's not what drives government. You see?
No, you see?
Yes.
Sorry, the way you're saying it, it makes it seem as if it should be a norm.
Yeah.
No, it should not be a norm.
Yes.
It's something that should drive government to some action. Action that the people expect them to give to them. That's what I think.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not what drives the system in the public service, especially here. Service delivery is not whatever.
I want you to say especially here.
Especially here.
Not for other places.
That's why they had Servicom at a point. Servicom was supposed to drive that, to get...
That was the one that Adobe was in charge of. Yes,
under President Obasanjo.
Yeah.
It was supposed to drive people, to motivate people to want to deliver service, but that's not the case, and Servicom is moribund right now. So it's the orientation and mentality of the workforce that we have in Nigeria, especially the public workforce. Look, there's a lot of theft of electricity going on. It has been reduced from when it was still in government control, but up to now, there are people who are consuming electricity that are not paying. Government just came up a few months ago with a stringent rule that people...
Band A, B, C, and others.
Yes, that they will go to court, and be jailed if you are caught stealing electricity. But they've been doing that. So there's been a lot of losses by these people who have invested, right? So that's why, I said about 8 of the discos are unviable, completely unviable because of electricity theft and not enough to distribute.
You sure it's also not poor management?
Of course.
Of resources and all of that?
Of course. The whole of that. But private sector people are driven to make profit.
Yeah.
Right? That's why you see, like I said, Ikeja Disco, for instance, is doing well. Why is Ikeja Disco doing well? Ikeja Zone and Co. are where the industries are, the manufacturing plants, and whatever, like.
And they're committed to making money so that they can survive.
Exactly. So, so a coal disco would have been doing the same thing, but there are not enough, corporate, bodies like factories and, like the plants that you have in the Ikeja, Agbara, Ogba area, whatever. So it's corporates, the small, businesses, offices and stuff like that. Those ones don't consume a lot of power and stuff like that. And they don't have enough because we even want it. There are people who want, they are not getting, 3 hours a day. Some people don't even get for a week. So if there was enough, if this 5.8...
Which is what got the Air Force to be so angry.
Exactly.
They didn't have power for 100 days.
If this 5.8 that's been generated is even getting to the people, economies of scale. In a situation where a coal disco will be distributing 40,000 megawatts, they are distributing 4,000 megawatts. How are you going to make your money? So those are the handicaps.
And this is where the population is.
Yes, those are the handicaps. And these discos or new companies that they're going to form that will run, that will generate, transmit, and distribute can take advantage of solar. If you go to Apapa, for instance, if you go to those areas where we have all the beaches and stuff like that and whatever, you see mangrove, you see bushes and whatever, there should be solar plants.
By the way, not at the expense of plants. So
no.
Okay.
Solar,
but we need oxygen.
Power, solar power, whatever. Generate, taking the
energy.
Yes, okay. There should be in the north wind power. We have the deserts there, and stuff like that and whatever. So both solar and wind, whatever, and stuff like that. Look, we are blessed in this country. So look, in the south, Niger Delta, we have gas.
Plenty of it.
We have hydro. Okay. In the southwest, at Bedubet, we have hydro, right? Up to Kogi.
In fact, Niger and Benue.
Exactly. Then in the north, we have deserts. So we can have solar, we can have wind. So, but right now, as I speak to you, we have one central line that they have had for since Nigeria was formed, maybe since 1914 or whatever. So that's why the grid is collapsing. This north should have its grid. The southwest should have its grid. The east should have its grid. Not one grid that just collapses everything. People should take advantage of what is endemic in their area.
Maybe we should go back to the regional concept. Midwest, West, East, North, or maybe even 6 geopolitical zones now, which would make it a lot better.
Yes, which is what I explained. That the political system started metamorphosing from 3 regions. After the war, it became 12.
Then it became 12.
They became 19.
And then 36.
Then it became 36. But the electricity system didn't change. It remained one. It remained one central one.
So
we didn't do that transition. We didn't do that transformation. Those are the consequences that we're suffering right now. And having identified it, we have to do something drastic about it. Because if we don't generate sufficient electricity, we cannot industrialize. If we don't look, the advanced society is in a new age already.
Okay, we have just a minute. I need to talk about you and authorship and authoring. How many books do you have? Have you written?
I have 4 already.
4?
Yeah. I have, the last one is Leading from the Streets.
That's picturesque.
Yeah. The foreword was written graciously written by General Yakubu Gowon.
Okay.
And, Professor Wole Soyinka, the Nobel laureate, actually wanted to be the keynote speaker. He was excited, just like you said. When I went to meet with him and I told him the title. He said, I should be involved in this. Leading from the street?
Exactly.
That's what I should be involved in, and stuff like that. But unfortunately, he couldn't make it. Something happened. I didn't show up. Just before 2023 elections, I published one called Becoming President of Nigeria. And it was all about what it would take to become the president of Nigeria. And, if some of the guidance that were there, were listened to, maybe, certain things would have happened in Nigeria, but they didn't pay enough heed. I wrote one on Abakari. Yes, and the first one I wrote was, of course, a personal memoir, my grief, the loss of my daughter, So, but I have two in the making right now, and it's one is on Darfur, why the superpowers failed to help. And that was, after Rwanda, you thought nothing of that sort would happen again because they say never again, but they allowed the Darfurians, the Sudanese people to massacre themselves. But despite the fact that they created South Darfur, South Sudan, Sudan, they're still fighting. So you see, so that's why I question two-state solution that they're even proposing for Gaza and Israel. Whatever, two-state solution has never worked. So
I think Africa is just being put in the back end of this whole
Yes, and the last one of the new ones that are coming is Africa exporting wealth, importing poverty. And we talked about it earlier. We talked about cocoa, for instance. When we export raw cocoa, we're exporting wealth. And when we import chocolates and beverages, Ovaltine, Bonvita, and stuff
Don't
like
forget
that,
palm oil.
Exactly.
Malaysia.
No, there are many examples. There are many examples. Cocoa is just one. Petrol. All the time we're exporting crude oil, we're exporting wealth. And we import petrol at high cost. Dangote just solved that problem for us. Plus the modular
And yet we try to stop him from moving on properly.
So you just wonder what these public servants, if they are not monsters, that's why they call them evil servants.
Needle
some of them,
eye mentality.
Some, whatever. So that's what the problem is. So this other one is, just like you said, we just spoke about Nigeria only, but the whole of Africa. In Congo, they are exporting wealth and importing poverty. In Niger Republic, they have uranium. They're exporting wealth, importing poverty.
In fact, I should have a second edition with you because Ibrahim Traore is the man after my heart.
Yeah.
Well, okay, it's been Soni Irabor live with Magnus Onyibe, a man who was my colleague at the NTA, commissioner in Delta State, has written 4 books and there are many more coming, 2 more coming for that matter. He's also a researcher, I must say, and there's a man I think you should know more about when it comes to academia. Anyway, thank you so much for being part. Well, take my hand and thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been Soni Irabor Live, and I hope that you will find a good reason to listen to it because the details of what we discussed here today or tonight, they go a long way and they mean a lot to us. Thank you. Good night.